Hi everybody, this video is about question 36 from GATE Biotechnology 2023 paper. The question is, which of the following conditions will contribute to the stability of a gene pool in a natural population? P. Large population, Q. No net mutation, R. Non-random mating, and S. No selection. So the options are A. P only, option B. P and Q only, option C, P and R only, and option D, P, Q, and S only. So before answering this question, let us look at some basics about population genetics. The given question is about which conditions contribute to the stability of a gene pool. So what is a gene pool? A gene pool refers to the combination of all the genes, including a gene's different alleles present in a reproducing population or a species. A large gene pool has extensive genomic diversity and is better able to withstand changes in the environment. A simple example of a gene pool is the collection of all alleles of all genes present in frogs presenting different phenotypes in a pond ecosystem. So now, studying the genetic variation within and among populations and the evolutionary factors that explain these variations in populations is called population genetics. It is based on the Hardy-Weinberg principle or the Hardy-Weinberg law. Now, what does it mean when a population is at Hardy-Weinberg equilibrium? So, the Hardy-Weinberg equilibrium is a principle stating that the genetic variation in a population will remain constant from one generation to the next in the absence of disturbing factors. It is maintained as long as the population size is large, mating is at random, and mutation, selection, and migration are negligible. So this statement would already give you an idea of what the answer to a question might be. But anyway, let us now discuss the important factors that influence the stability of a gene pool in a population and helps it maintain a Hardy-Weinberg equilibrium. One of the several factors influencing a gene pool's stability is the population size. So smaller groups can act significantly than bigger groups. They are frequently the result of demographic shortages from larger populations, resulting in loss of heterozygosity and loss of genetic diversity, as well as variant loss or fixation and changes in allele rates. A tiny population is more vulnerable to demographic and genetic chaotic events, which can have an effect on the population's long existence. As a result, smaller populations are frequently labeled endangered or extinct, raising conservation concerns. So, larger the population, more the genetic diversity, and hence more the stability of the gene pool. Another factor important in maintaining a gene pool is mutation. So, the original sources of genetic variation are mutations, which are changes in the nucleotide sequence of DNA. Mutations create new alleles and increase the genetic variability. Most mutations do not carry significant changes to the health or functioning of an organism. However, if a mutation reduces the chances of survival, the organism may die before reproducing. Therefore, such harmful mutations are likely to be eliminated by natural selections. So, a scenario where mutations that introduce new alleles into a population are exactly balanced by the mutations that eliminate existing alleles from the population is called net mutation. In other words, the frequency of new alleles entering the gene pool is exactly matched by the frequency of alleles being lost due to mutations. This scenario would result in a situation where the genetic diversity of the population remains unchanged. So, while mutations are necessary to maintain a genetic diversity in a population, mutations that nullify each other's effect serve no purpose in maintaining the stability of a gene pool and in the organism's survival over generations. Another important terminology in population genetics is natural selection. Natural selection results from differences in the survival and reproduction of individuals within a population. Individuals with traits or alleles that confer advantages in specific environment are more likely to survive, reproduce, and pass those advantageous alleles to the next generation. Conversely, individuals with less advantageous traits may be less likely to reproduce or may produce fewer offsprings. So overall, Natural selection is categorized into two major categories called positive or negative selection. Positive selection is where advantageous alleles are passed on to the next generations, while negative selection is where the harmful alleles, for example the disease-causing alleles, are removed from a population, thereby maintaining a diversity in the population and a fitness that serves advantages to the survival of an organism or a species over a period of time. This figure shows examples of the three main types of natural selection. One is directional selection. So, directional selection is where one extreme trait is favored for an organism's fitness. For example, a very long tail of a lizard is advantageous as it scares away its predators. Another type of selection is the stabilizing selection. So, this is where moderate traits are favored over either of the extremes. For example, short tails in a cat messes up with its balance and coordination, while a long tail affects its movement. Thus, alleles responsible for a medium tail are favored. The next is disruptive selection. So, this is where both extremes are favorable as compared to an average. For example, in squirrels, short tails may help prevent predators from easily catching them, and a large tail helps with its balance. A medium tail is, on the other hand, advantageous in no way. Thus, alleles contributing to a favorable trait that is advantageous for its survival and fitness is maintained in a population through a phenomenon called natural selection. Another factor that contributes to the stability of a gene pool is the way the organisms in a population mate with each other. So, individuals in natural populations may also select their mates based on certain characteristics and thus do not reproduce randomly. In this case, alleles for the traits that are selected against will become less frequent in the population, while only the alleles that organisms prefer would be maintained. Let's talk about an example where the trait round blood cells is maintained in a population while the sickle cells are selected against. But we know that sickle cells confer immunity against malaria. In this case, let's say if the population is affected with malaria, all individuals may be affected and hence it serves disadvantages to the population. So the population would be at an advantage if there were a diversity where immunity against malaria could be achieved. So thus non-random mating won't make allele frequencies in the population change by itself, although it can alter genotype frequencies. This keeps the population from being in Hardy-Weinberg equilibrium, but it's debatable whether it counts as evolution since the allele frequencies are staying the same. Thus, random mating is necessary for introducing diversities in a population. Furthermore, populations can experience gene flow, that is, the transfer of alleles into and out of gene pools due to migration. A classic example of gene flow is observed in most baboon species. Female baboons mate more frequently with dominant males in a troop. Juvenile male baboons almost always leave their birth troops, likely to avoid inbreeding, and join a new troop where they may pass their genes to their offsprings. So, another terminology is bottleneck effect. In genetic drift, chance events alter the allele frequencies of a populations. Or a major disturbance such as a natural disaster may drastically reduce the population size and thereby diminish the genetic variation. The resulting composition of the gene pool was selected randomly. That is, surviving the disturbance, that is the natural disaster, was not determined by the genetic makeup of the individuals. It was just by a random chance. Such a reduction in genetic diversity is called a bottleneck effect. This affects the genetic makeup of a population. Another important terminology is the founder effect. Sometimes a population may become fragmented into smaller populations due to urban development or other events. A new population is started by a small group of members of the original population, and by chance, a previously rare allele may be relatively frequent. This effect on gene frequencies is known as the founder effect and affects the stability of gene pools. So coming back to our question, which of the following conditions will contribute to the stability of a gene pool in a natural population? So option P, large population, which is true because larger the population, more stable is the gene pool. And option Q, no net mutation. So Yeah, like we saw, this option is also true because mutations are necessary to maintain diversity, but larger mutations is not favorable. And option R, non-random mating. This is false because a random mating is necessary to introduce diversity and to contribute to the stability of a gene pool. So we rule out R. And then option S, no selection. So in a naturally occurring population, there would be no selection for the alleles and the diversity would still be maintained. So the answer to this question would be option D, where the options P, Q, and S are correct. These are the factors that will contribute to the stability of a gene pool in a natural population.